So in this segment, we're going to talk about why we use food in training. If you already know this, if you've had other training courses from Leerburg and you know why we use food, don't waste your time on this segment. Move on. But for those folks that have not trained a dog before, you need to understand why. But people that are new are always going to be faced with the naysayer that says, why are you training your dog with food? You're going to have an application sometime where you get out someplace and you call your dog and you don't have any food, and then what are you going to do? Those are people that are just clueless about how to train dogs. I'm sorry. You need to be careful about who you get your dog training information from. Thank God you came to me, because I think I'm going to help you. At least I hope I'm going to help you after having 50 some years of training. Geez, maybe more than that now. But anyway, we use food for a very good reason. There's only 4 ways to motivate a dog to do something you want him to do when you're teaching it a new behavior, in this case, recalls. You can motivate your dog with food. You can motivate your dog with a toy, if it has toy drive. You can motivate your dog through handler praise, and probably less than 1% of all the dogs out there are going to work for long periods of time through training and learning new behaviors just for handler praise. Or you can force your dog to do it. I can force my dog, and I've said it before, I can force my dog to do anything with enough pressure. Now, we don't choose to do that. We want our dogs to enjoy working with us. We want our dogs to want to learn how to learn. We do that with food. Young puppies all have more food drive than toy drive. Doesn't need to stay like that. A lot of dogs, after they've lost their baby teeth, will develop toy drive if you help them develop toy drive. But that's a conversation for another training video. We can take a little pile of food that we want to use in a training session that we're going to have in a few minutes that's going to last 2 or 3 minutes. And maybe we're going to be able to do 10 or 15 reps with our excited dog in the next 2 or 3 minutes. You can't do that with a toy unless the dog has gone through the training for toys. So let's say you do have a 5-6-year-old rescue dog and it loves toys. Still start with food because of the number of reps you can do in a very short period of time. With the toy, the background training for using a toy is the dog has to, number 1, have enough interest in the toy to look at it as a high value reward. Number 2, it needs to run out and get it when you toss it. Number 3, it needs to bring it back to you when you ask it to bring it back to you. Even if it's on leash, it still has to come back to you. It has to play tug with you when you want it to play tug, because that's part of toys, usually part of toys. But most importantly, it has to spit the toy out when you ask it to. And that's a training scenario that it has to know before you start using toys. But with food, we can do rep after rep after rep. If you have a dog that has a strong toy drive, he doesn't want to give up his toy, you're going to have to fight him to give it up. He's not going to like that. So he's not going to look at training like this is fun. With food, it can be fun. Now, the question will always come up, what do you do with a dog that doesn't have a lot of food drive? Some dogs don't have a ton of food drive. That doesn't mean you can't do some work to make them have food drive. Number 1, don't train after you fed your dog. Number 2, use the high value food rewards that we talked about. Number 3, if it needs to be, don't feed your dog for a day or 2. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as they have water, in the wild, wolves and fox, they can go a day or 2 without eating. Your dog can go a day or 2 without eating. It's going to be harder on you than it is to be on your dog. But your dog, if you do that with your dog is going to develop food drive, especially if you come in after a day and offer it high value food. Oh, that's going to change a whole lot of things with you. What you'll find is that dogs that go through this fasting period develop food drive, because they never know when they're going to get their next high-value food reward or even their next bowl of food. So that's important to think about. But in closing, I'm going to say this too. Within this course, we're going to show you how to wean your dog off of using food as rewards for every behavior that they do. In other words, we don't necessarily, at the end of this training, need to reward our dog with a food reward every time the dog comes to us. We're going to talk about how to do random or intermittent rewarding with your dog. Because if you do it correctly, you can build drive for the dog to want to come and do what you're asking it to do. So that's down the road. I will tell you this, Cindy and I use food for all the rest of our dogs' lives. We will reward them when they don't expect a reward, and it helps our relationship with our dog. It keeps the drive up with our dogs. We want a dog to want to be with us. We want a dog with a good relationship, and we can do that by randomly or intermittently using food to reward a behavior that the dog already knows how to do.